I bet you guys weren't expecting another Vita review from me, were you? Well, thanks to Kemco and the fact that the Nintendo Switch version of their newest console port isn't coming out until next week, we're gonna do a Vita review. And this game being on consoles now raises my hopes for more sequel games to come over to handhelds. Because if you don't know, some of Kemco's RPGs actually got sequels and became RPG series. And the game we're going to be talking about today takes place in the Revenant series, technically a sequel of sorts to Revenant Saga. Here is my review of Revenant Dogma for the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV. While Dogma technically is a sequel to Revenant Saga, you don't really need to play Saga to be able to play Dogma. A couple of the main characters show up for one small scene, but all of the story elements, including that scene, are pretty much explained to you. In Revenant Dogma, there are two races that exist in the world, each separated by continents, and each with their own set of deities that they worship. However, when one of these races receives blessings and power from the gods and the other one doesn't, a strange savior appears in the world of humans, creating miracles, granting special abilities that humans weren't granted by the gods, who are then dubbed Revenant Warriors, part of the Revenant Corps. You play as Cain, a human orphan sent by the Revenant Corps to search for ancient relics from the other race. He ends up stumbling into a strange Revenant research lab, and for trespassing and questioning their experiments, he's branded a traitor and hunted into enemy territory, where he starts to learn the truth about what's really going on with the world. Now, I wouldn't really call the game's story amazing. It does work with its whole set up a world-ending threat JRPG trope, but that particular threat, the world-ending part, just happens so suddenly right at the end of the game. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a villain wanting to destroy the world, but it goes straight to that so suddenly that it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It feels like they just kind of rushed towards the end of the game once you get to that story point. Now let's get into gameplay. Revenant Dogma, like previous Kemco RPGs, is a retro-style turn-based RPG where you travel an overworld map, go through towns and dungeons, and fight through turn-based battles. It also retains the unique 2D and 3D melding design of Revenant Saga, having 2D exploration and 3D battles. The way you progress is pretty much typical retro RPG formula. The story points you to a new town or dungeon, and it remains pretty linear until you get a ship where things open up. Just the typical formula that the old SNES Final Fantasy games gave the gaming world. Like Revenant Saga, the uniqueness comes when you go into combat. As I said before, this game has 2D and 3D gameplay elements. As soon as you go into battle, that 2D Final Fantasy 4 and 6 look disappears and you get a more PS1 or PSP-esque 3D RPG look, where you suddenly have camera angles and all of the character and battle animations are in 3D. The game also pulls the transformation system from Revenant Saga. As you play through the game, each of your characters are going to gain access to new transformations, which are basically character classes that you can alter and change on the fly in battle. The way this works is through skills and abilities. As every character levels up, they gain new skills, but some skills are exclusive to certain classes and transformations. So when you start a boss battle, you might have to transform everybody into guardians to use each one's different buffs for the party or debuffs, and then morph them into different classes on the next turn depending on which characters are going to be attacking and which characters are going to be more support or healing. I've always liked this system because it's basically a class-based system, but you can change your class on the fly each turn in battle, instead of having to wait until a battle's over to go back to your home base or something to change up your character's skills and abilities. Now, outside of combat, it does have its typical Kemco RPG features, like an in-game shop that you can use premium currency to buy certain bits of equipment, but the way they change things up here is that the special overpowered cheat items like experience times 2 or 3 are actually not bought with premium currency, and they're exclusive to the microtransaction shop. While you don't really need any of this equipment because the game's not really that hard, if you want it, you're gonna have to pay real money for it. Before we finish this section though, there are two things that keep the game a little bit unique compared to Kimco RPGs, and two things that I really like that they put in here. The first is fast travel. How many retro RPGs do you see with fast travel? Even though you have a ship that you can use to sail around the sea, you can fast travel to any town or dungeon you visited in the past. And if that dungeon actually advances the story, the game will even move your ship to a nearby port so you don't have to backtrack to go get it. That's a really convenient feature that I like. The other is the fact that weapons drop from enemies so often that you don't even have to waste your money buying them from the shops. Town shops do have weapons for you to buy, but as soon as you go to your next dungeon, you're going to get weapon drops in almost every other battle you do. So it's really set up where you can save your money just to buy armor and just fight battles as you move towards the next boss, and you'll be well equipped by the time you get there. And now let's talk about the game's length, because you're not going to get as much time out of this game as you did with its predecessor. Revenant Saga took me around 20 hours to complete, not really doing that much side content. Revenant Dogma, on the other hand, only took me around 12 hours, which is actually only around 10 hours because of something I'm going to mention in the next section. It's still not a bad amount of time for the price you're paying, but don't expect it to be one of Kimco's longer journeys. Speaking of that, let's go into presentation. Graphically, the game doesn't look bad. The 2D environments look good for what they are, though the 2D characters do look a little bit blurry, and the 3D characters definitely look like they have a little bit less detail than they did in Revenant Saga. Performance, though, is what we really need to talk about. The Vita version of Revenant Dogma really struggles. It's got a lot of lag that creates a very choppy slowdown effect whenever you're wandering around dungeons. This is important because none of the other Kimco RPGs really suffer like this, and it hurts what I like the most about these RPGs: the fast pacing of movement. On PS4 and mobile, Revenant Dogma plays just like previous RPGs, but on the Vita, it really struggles to run, and that's really a letdown. Now, in conclusion, Revenant Dogma is a unique RPG that keeps that 2D and 3D meld that Saga started. Unfortunately, it's brought down by performance issues with the Vita port and the fact that the game's story just kind of rushes to the end out of nowhere. It's definitely worth playing if you like retro RPGs or you're a Kimco fan, but you're probably better off playing this on the PS4 or on the Switch. Reviews to Go rates Revenant Dogma for the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV a 6.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, or head to the website at reviewstogo.com. Before I go, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my donators and patrons. I appreciate and use all donations that I receive to further both the quantity and quality of the content here on Reviews to Go. Thank you very much, and if any of you would like to donate, head over to patreon.com/reviewstogo, or if you'd rather do a one-time donation, head over to paypal.me/reviewstogo. Thanks again for watching the review. Have a great day.